Out of Washington, D.C. today, guys, a massive piece of legislation introduced by Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida. We have heard y'all asking for it for years. It's here today. Abolish the ATF Act. H.R. 374 was introduced by Congressman Matt Gaetz today and a few other co-sponsors. All of y'all out there, welcome in. I'm Patrick Parsons with the American Firearms Association alongside my colleague, Chris Dorr, who's here with me tonight. The first thing I'm going to ask of y'all guys, like, share, pound those buttons, and in the comments section, we're going to have a big chat bar up there. We want to hear from y'all about this legislation. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know if you've heard about the bill. And what you want to see now, what you want to see next. So we got Columbus, Ohio is first in, guys. Chris, the gun rights community is raging right now over Merrick Garland and the ATF, the pistol brace ban. There's a lot of legislation floating around Capitol Hill, around the country, talks of lawsuits. But what we see today with Gaetz is going for the kill, right? Going all the way in. And people are fired up. It was all over the internet today.
As they damn well should be. They should be fired up, Patrick. And welcome in, everybody. There's a lot of people watching this in a lot of different states right now, but they should be fired up because what the radical left is doing here is telling the American people that don't agree with them that they are willing to make millions and millions of people into total felons through executive fiat, not even running this bill through Congress. They know they can't get it done there. So they're taking their executive power and they're abusing it, and they're willing to make people into felons. I mean, don't we hear this all the freaking time about how our right to vote is our most cherished right? We need to open up the laws and make it so that dead people and all this stuff, so and anybody can vote. And yet they're willing to strip away the voting rights of their political dissidents, of their political opposition in a heartbeat. That's what this is about, and they know it. They know that people like you and me and everybody in the comment section right now, they know that we are political opposition to them. They use these opportunities to make us felons, to strip away our freedoms any chance they can, and people should be pissed off, and that's why we support what Matt Gaetz just did.
Yeah, and I was seeing it all over the internet today, all over Facebook, all over Twitter. I can't find one gun owner, and I don't want to find one gun owner who's going to go turn their firearms in or disassemble them or surrender them or whatever because Merrick Garland and the Justice Department says, well, you got a pistol brace on that and you can't use it. I haven't heard from anybody. No. And in the comments section, if you're not going to turn them in, just say, hell no, I'm not turning them in. And I don't know what these guys at the ATF are thinking other than tyranny. The numbers I've seen are as many as 40 million gun owners are going to be affected. 120 days from now, the rule has to sit for 120 days over at the ATF. We're not going to run into any gun owners who want to comply with this crap. I mean, in all likelihood, I think who this could affect the most is just that guy who doesn't really know maybe what he's got, and he goes in somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And ATF,
well, that's the obvious truth here. Over the last several years, especially when the ATF came out with the clarification language ruling several years ago, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans who went out and bought these pistols because they are very convenient, because they're easy to control. And now they don't even pay, and they don't pay attention. There's a lot of people out there over the last 2 years, social unrest, the summer of violence in 2020, whatever you want, the COVID lockdowns, they made people realize that we are the people who need to take care of our own safety. We can't rely on government to do that. So they went out to gun shops and gun stores all across America and bought these things because they are very functional. They're very practical and useful. They are going to be made felons. They don't even know what they have in their gun safes. And this stuff is going to target them and make them felons. And they don't even know about it. They don't even know about it.
Yeah. And I know that's what everybody wants to talk about. It's raging all over. But what we see from Gaetz here, and I think you need to go and look into the background of Gaetz a little bit. You can do your research on the internet, guys. Go back to 2020. He wrote a letter to the ATF about the honey badger. If you guys remember, the ATF went after the honey badger pretty hard. My understanding is that he's got some people there in his district who have that firearm, and he was advocating on their behalf. But go back and Google Gaetz 2020 ATF. He was waving the red flag, so to speak, on what was coming. He did. He said the ATF is going to try to ban pistol braces, period. And here we are. Of course, that was during the Trump era, but here we are 3 years later, 3.5 years later, really, or maybe 3 years. I can't remember exactly when he wrote the letter. And here they are doing it. Blatantly unconstitutional. Yeah. They're spitting right in our face, unelected bureaucrats. And Gaetz has said with this bill, H.R. 374, you know what? Screw these guys. This is a 100-year-old agency. Started with alcohol and prohibition. They were trying to tax alcohol, and they get tobacco and firearms. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it, Chris.
Yeah. And I see people talking about this in the comment section right now, referencing this, but a lot of this kicked off with the bump stocks. So many people, you said just a minute ago that you have yet to find somebody who will walk into and get into a line at the ATF and submit their guns or register them. We saw it happen in after Newtown. We saw people, remember that picture of them lined up doing that? It was so shameful, but we have to remember there has always been those types of people in American history where the chains of slavery rest on them. They don't mind it. Worse, they attack people like us who absolutely refuse to comply with this garbage. And you know what? We have to fight through that. So I really appreciate what Matt's doing here. You were just talking about looking up into his history. A lot of people will attack Matt Gaetz as this or that. But you look back, that guy was the subcommittee chairman in the Florida legislature back right after the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman trial in 2012, when the Florida legislature was going to revisit their stand your ground law. And Matt Gaetz said it back then. He's like, I'm not going to change one damn comma in our stand your ground law, but I'm willing to listen to those who think we should. And this guy understands what so many Republicans do not understand. You can't fix many times a broken system. Sometimes the system has to be rejected, excised. If it's cancerous, you don't just sit there and pray that the cancer fixes itself. You either cut it out or you change your lifestyle to make sure that it gets taken care of. That's what he's doing here. He's setting the bar over here, saying the system is broken, the system is corrupt, and it's time to remove it. I love it.
Exactly. And our federal legislative team was on Capitol Hill, met with Congressman Gaetz, met with his staff last week. We've been working with them all throughout this week as well to get this bill done. Make no mistake about it. This bill, H.R. 374, Abolish the ATF Act, was a collaboration between Your American Firearms Association and Congressman Gaetz's office. You're right, Chris. It's planting the flag. It's saying this is what we want. This is where we need to go. And that's, when we're talking to gun owners around the country now, get out there and tell your congressman to support this legislation. We were talking to some congressmen staff today. A bunch of people are going to hop on this bill as time goes on. Chris, do you have that Fox News article? There was a lot of articles about this bill today. I don't know if you guys saw that. If you can pop that up, Chris. Here, I think. And while Chris is, there you go. So Gaetz introduces, there he is with, I guess, Boebert down there. Gaetz introduces Abolish the ATF Act. You can see it there on foxnews.com. Some of y'all out there call it fake news, but they do have a big following, Fox News. I think it was on day. It was, what's that?
I was just going to say, I think they were the first people to run this out there. And, you know, as I sit here and I look at this picture right now, I now have fond memories of these two, as these were the two that led the charge on the House floor. So many people started attacking them. But these two are responsible for a major rules overhaul. These two people right here, because they were unyielding in their pursuit of righteousness on the House floor just the other day, it resulted in tons of committee positions that never would have happened if it wasn't for these two running that monster play. Of course, they had some help. They had help amongst a bunch of other people in that group of 20, but these were the figureheads right there. I think Lauren Boebert was the one that was directly in the line of fire when Congressman, what's his name, that was starting to throw the punch.
Mike Rogers from Alabama.
Mike Rogers, yeah. But this is what it takes. If you're watching right now in a bunch of states that we've been doing gun rights politics in for a long time, that extremes dictate the middle. And that's what we've seen happen here now with these two. They planted the flag. They're planting the flag now with this bill. And we need your Congress members to co-sponsor this bill so that you know exactly what kind of Congress member you actually have.
Yeah, it was, as I mentioned a couple times, was ripping around social media today. Fox News, obviously a huge megaphone at Fox News. Saw it in Daily Caller, saw it on the Daily Wire, saw it in a ton of Florida newspapers where, of course, Congressman Gaetz is from. But when you think about the ATF, SHOT Show's happening in Vegas right now. Cool. Yeah, cool to go to SHOT Show. But, our team is, I counted up the other day, probably in between 15 and 20 state capitals doing operations, Illinois, et cetera, here in the first few weeks of January, as well as working in the Congress in Washington, D.C. But there's been bills in Washington, I think it was Sheila Jackson Lee or someone else, 200 more ATF agents. I mean, don't quote me here, but I think the agency is like 8,000 employees. I could be wrong. There was big money for it
Send
as
them
well.
to the unemployment line.
Yeah, exactly. So, there was big money for the ATF for more hiring, I think, in the omnibus bill. And that is another concession that those 20 who fought Kevin McCarthy for concessions on the House floor, don't understate this, guys. You've probably heard of the omnibus spending bill in Washington, D.C. The omnibus, that's like all these departments, all these bureaucracies, they put them in one bill and they give it to you about 3 hours before and they say, vote on it. Well, the concessions that those 20 Republicans got out of McCarthy is single issue spending bills. And I don't know exactly what you call it, but so like ATF or Justice Department, however it's funded, that's going to be a vote on the floor, and there's going to be amendments to that. You can amend it. Nobody could amend anything. And so these fights are so very important. And this also begs the question. Let's say, okay, Patrick and Chris, American Firearms Association, in your perfect world, you get rid of the ATF. Okay, Gaetz bill passes, whatever, in your perfect world. Well, what happens next? Well, yeah,
Nothing.
Of course. Yeah, well, nothing. The FBI would pick up, then let's go after the FBI. You see what I'm saying? It's like, that's not our problem. It is our problem. But for the time being, let's end it. Let's shut the doors. Let's sell the place off. And let's get this over with. Gun owners, I can't even remember the example you used 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. This is just a different era. And I think this pistol brace ban was like going off the edge of the cliff. You know what I'm saying? And there's some other bills floating around on Capitol Hill, the Congressional Review Act and the Pistol Act and all this stuff. And it's just like, why are we messing around with this? Like, F these guys.
I know.
End it.
It's the dumbest thing on the planet right now. You've got Eric Pratt from Gun Owners of America out there on national media saying, we need to go through the Congressional Review Act. Hello? That needs to be signed by the freaking president of the United States. Yeah. Guess who that old codger is? Okay. Right. It's corrupt China Joe Biden. He's never going to sign it. You can't fool his handlers into no. This is about raising the flag right now, training the Republican conference in Washington, D.C. Now that we have the chance, because of these rules changes, We need to train these Republicans. We're asking everybody to get on board this. Train your Republicans how to fight now. That's what we're trying to do with bills like this. We got another one coming out here very shortly. I think you guys are going to love it. Train them to fight, because if we ever get the majority back, we need to go all the way and do to them what they are trying to do to us. It's Alinsky rule number, 2. Make your political enemies live under their own rules. That's what we've got to do. That's what Matt Gaetz is doing. That's what he understands. That's what Lauren Boebert understands. That's what those 20 courageous Republicans understood. That's why we're pushing this stuff out there. So hit that link in the comment section. I'm going to drop it in there really quick.
Yeah.
Sign your petition. What's that?
Drop it in there.
Yes. Go for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll do it.
And while Chris is doing that, I'm going to read some quotes from the Fox News article from Gaetz today, so you get an understanding. So Gaetz represents Northwest Florida. Some of y'all have been down there. Destin, Pensacola. I think his district ends about maybe 40 miles or 30 miles west of Panama City, if you look at the map. So he's got, I think he has the highest concentration of military veterans in his district, a lot of retirees, et cetera, et cetera. And here's one of his quotes. He's got a lot of disabled, and this isn't necessarily the reason for, pistol brace ban, but this is something that, of course, the politicians in D.C. don't think about. He says, I have a lot of disabled veterans in my district who enjoy pistol shooting and rely on stabilizing braces to be able to engage in the activity. The recent actions from the ATF essentially allow them to make case-by-case determinations on whether a pistol with a stabilizing brace is a legal or unlawful sawed-off shotgun. The continued existence of the ATF is increasingly unwarranted based on the actions they are taking to convert law-abiding citizens, people, into felons. My bill would abolish.
And this is where it gets good.
Yeah, my bill would abolish the ATF. If that doesn't work, we're going to try defunding the ATF. If that doesn't work, we're going to target the individual bureaucrats at the top of the ATF who have exceeded their authority in rulemaking. And if that doesn't work, we're going to take a meat cleaver to the statutes that the ATF believe broadly authorizes their actions. So Matt Gaetz, Congressman Gaetz of Florida, is on the Judiciary Committee. This is where most gun legislation comes. And we talked to him last year.
This bill already went there.
Yeah, exactly. When we did a podcast with the CPI, that's where we recorded it up in Washington. This is dragging the bureaucrats. The Republicans now have subpoena power. Jim Jordan better get off his butt and get these ATF people in there and say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Where's your authorization to do this? This is unacceptable. And there's a lot of fighters on that committee. There's Gaetz. The Judiciary Committee, to be honest, is where all the action's going to be, from impeachment to this and that. But you've got Chip Roy, you got Thomas Massey, you've got Gaetz, you got Andy Biggs, and some other, Dan Bishop, some other people across there, Jim Jordan. But drag these bureaucrats in there and question them, dig into them. If you can't abolish it, let's defund it. If you can't defund it, let's drag the bureaucrats in. If the bureaucrats won't tell you anything, start cutting their statutes and their abilities to do stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is all about. And let's fight and go after it. Let's not waste time. Let's figure out, let's lift the hood over there at the ATF and see what's going on.
Because it is long past time for us to sit here and twiddle our thumbs and take no action and excuse inaction with, we can't stoop to that kind of a level. Folks, we need to get real about what the left's vision for this country is. We can see it right now in front of us. The day that we're totally disarmed is the day we turn into Venezuela, communist China, you name it. We cannot sit here and fight these radicals, politically speaking, for the human impaired, in the same way that it was done in 1995. It cannot be done. That has to go away. We need to adopt a lot of their rules. We don't have to adopt their tactics or their ethics, but we can sure adopt their tactics. And when we have power, we need to use it and exercise it as hard as we possibly can to address this cancer and cut this cancer out. So I could not be in more agreement with the way he's approaching this. We need these Republicans to stand up now and roar on this Judiciary Committee. We need to rip the Band-Aid off here, and we need to go all in on these investigations, drag these Dettelback. He has got to be sitting there in front of Jim Jordan and that Judiciary Committee within 2 months, or we have major problems. The left has made such ground towards their communist agenda over the last couple of years. If we don't take some of that back, and all we do is sit here and pretend that we're fighting, we lose. We're done. It's it. It's time to take the ground back, and that's what this bill represents.
Guys, so in the coming days, if you're not already on our grassroots email alerts, I encourage y'all tonight, join up at the American Firearms Association, join AFA.org, get involved. We had a grassroots email alert, tens and tens of thousands of American gun owners across the country. Open that today. You got this information. You saw Chris and I with Congressman Gaetz, met up with him last week in the photo there. There's a link. I think there's a link to his bill in those grassroots alert guys. But in the coming days, you'll see some co-sponsors rolled out on this. Obviously, the establishment is not going to be happy about this. They're not. They're just not. I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats, Republicans especially. But if you live, especially in a district where you have a conservative congressman, there's no reason why they shouldn't be a co-sponsor of this legislation.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Just like they should have been in the 20 who were fighting.
Yes.
For the rules changes
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. It'll be interesting to see if we get hearings. I think Congressman Gaetz is serious. Obviously, or he wouldn't have put the bill in. Again, he's in the Judiciary Committee. Going back to the pistol brace ban a little bit, for those of y'all who do not know, when they call it a letter, when the letter is posted by Merrick Garland, signed by Merrick Garland, there's 120 days amnesty for you to surrender your guns, take your guns apart, sell them back to whoever the hell. And when that 120 days is up, you're in violation of the law on this pistol bracing. 120 days. At that point is when lawsuits can be filed. And certainly here at American Firearms Association, if you're also on our email list, you'll know that we're going to be involved in litigation, whether that be a main case or signing on an amicus brief or in a coalition of gun organizations. But we're going to be involved in that. We're also raising funds to basically get rid of this, just like the Bumpstock was gotten rid of. In addition to cases across the country we're going to be involved in. So
one other thing I was going to address here, because, we've always said this at the American Firearms Association or Ohio Gun Owners, one of the state pages that you're watching this on right now. We're not interested in becoming and getting the most members. We're the best of the gun rights community, like the 300 essentially of the gun rights activist world. And if you're one of those people who approach this whole thing like, oh, look, I can get my SBRs now without having to pay the fee, scram, beat it. That's the dumbest thing. If the chains of slavery rest so lightly upon you, like my good friend Sam Adams said, may posterity forget that you were our countrymen and go away. If you mentally excuse each and every infringement on our gun rights that rolls out of these corrupt, degenerate, lefty alphabet agencies, you are not worthy to be watching this video right now. That kind of stuff, that kind of mental excusion, if that's even a word, mental excuse mentality is exactly how this country got to where it was. Because at the outset, when this corruption, when this worldview of communism started to creep into American government, that was the time for our predecessors to have dealt with these issues. It's why you are supposed to discipline your kids when they're young, so they don't have big, huge problems when they're old. Those that went before us did not address these things. And so now here we are. So if you adopt that worldview, oh, this is just my chance to get SBRs. Yeah, may the chains of slavery crush you, and posterity forget that you are our countrymen. Go away. This is the time to fight for the survival of this country, because if the Second Amendment goes down, our entire country goes down. I know it, you know it, they know it. That's why they're doing these things. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case there's any lurkers or FUDs or people who are not up to the fight that is before us in our midst. Be gone. Get out of here. So
this is a big deal. 30, 40 million gun owners potentially in, I don't know, 115 days. You're a criminal, bro. I mean, so, we need leadership.
So I've had so many people have been contacting us at Ohio Gun Owners and Pennsylvania Firearms Association, all the groups that I work with on a daily basis. They're like, what do we do? What do we do? And to a person, I've been telling them, well, this isn't my original idea, but if you go back to the 1995 movie Braveheart, you can see when the tyrannical king's men came into Scotland, what did these people all do? They all went to their roofs and they all uncovered their swords that they had buried and hidden all over the place. The English were tyrants then. Then they were tyrants later on in the 1770s. I think there's good precedent for peaceful. What do you call it, Patrick? What peaceful
non-compliance?
Yeah. Peaceful resistance.
Yeah.
We've always been advocates of buying them cheap and burying them deep here. They want to turn you into felon. They want to take, when you got a felony on your record, your whole life is destroyed. They want to make you into a felon because they want your life destroyed. They want to take away your guns. They want to make you register like a bunch of sex offenders. That's what this is. Those people lining up to register their guns, that they're willingly being called sex offenders by our government. And if you don't do it, they want to strip away your right to vote. They want to strip away your right to have a job. They want to strip away your right to provide for your family. This is what they want to do to all of us. Now's the time to draw the line in the sand. So get on board. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, guys, and if you're just now joining us, we're about to wrap up here, but huge day in Washington today, all over the news, especially in the Second Amendment world. Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, one of the leaders of the rules fight a couple of weeks ago in Congress. It took 15 rounds. He has introduced H.R. 374, the Abolish the ATF Act. It's a one-page bill. How refreshing. A one-page bill to abolish, period, immediately, the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the tyrannical crushing that agency, unelected bureaucrats have been bestowing upon our country and gun owners for, about 100 years. Started with prohibition, if you really look into the history of it. So Gaetz has put that bill in. He's planted the flag. This is what Republicans should do. And anything in between here and there, we should do it and get the hell freaking rid of ATF. That should be the goal. And our federal legislative team here at the American Firearms Association, we worked with Congressman Gaetz and his staff to get this bill done. They were great. They worked hard. They worked quick. And here we go. And I think you're going to see a lot of ATF bills on Capitol Hill. We want to see hearings. We want to see Dettelbach in front of these hearings, Dettelbach, and we want questions answered. And at the end of the day, we want them defunded, we want them eliminated, and we want them gone. So that's what the show is about tonight, guys. We love y'all. Thank you so much for all your support. A bunch of new members coming in tonight. Join afa.org when you leave the show here tonight. If you're not yet a member, join up. We've had thousands and thousands and thousands of new members over the last few months. And our fulfillment department is actually catching up right now. So be looking for your membership package. Comes with a t-shirt if you join tonight, and membership decal as well. So, Chris, any closing words here about this fight? Anything we missed here?
I would just say that this is a great opportunity to separate the wheat, the chaff from the wheat, or the wheat from the chaff, whichever direction it comes. And especially be watching your state legislative level emails from like Ohio Gun Owners, Minnesota Gun Rights, those, whatever page you're watching on right now. There are people, especially on this Judiciary Committee, that need to be hearing from people in like Ohio, for example. We want to get as many of your Congress members on the record on this. So be watching for that. We're going to be putting pretty good pressure on them. It's time for them to do more than gobble up the camera lights. It's time for them to take action. So we're going to be asking you folks to be in contact with your members of Congress to co-sponsor this bill because it needs to happen. So be watching for that. And that's all I've got for tonight. So,
guys, wherever you're watching all over the country, in maybe a state group that you belong to, this is a special edition of the American Firearms Association. We thought that all of y'all across the country should know about this information. So support your state groups. Support the American Firearms Association. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, Getter, Gab, Telegram, et cetera, et cetera. But if you want to get on our email list, sign petitions, become a member tonight at joinafa.org. Right when you leave the show, head on over there. $35 a year, less than 10 cents a day. We are fighting all over the country, guys, for your Second Amendment rights. We love y'all. Thank you for your support. And we will see y'all on the next episode of the American Firearms Association live show, guys. Talk to you later. Have a great night and a great week. See you guys.
Have a good night.